Sara Jacobs thought she was being slick. Let's analyze this.
Please raise your hand if you would like Ebola in the United States.
You say your question again?
Would you like Ebola in the United States?
I'm glad the Trump administration approved Ebola response.
During a House hearing, Sara tried pinning the recent Ebola outbreak on DOGE. But Brian Mast shut that down by playing a clip exposing where USAID dollars were really ending up. And today we're covering it all. So, if you believe truth isn't partisan, hit the subscribe button and let's jump right into it.
For those of you who don't remember, Ebola is a disease that has about a 41% fatality rate, no vaccine, no treatment. It causes vomiting, muscle pain, and hemorrhagic bleeding. Pretty bad. I'd like all of my colleagues, please raise your hand if you would like Ebola in the United States. No one?
You say your question again?
Would you like Ebola in the United States?
I'm glad the Trump administration approved Ebola response in their waivers.
Yes, on that point, I ask for unanimous consent to enter into the record a New York Times article, Life-Saving Aid Remains Halted Worldwide Despite Rubio's Promise.
So ordered, but it's not if you want to see the list.
And not only is this freeze endangering Americans, but Trump and Musk's argument for stopping this assistance to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse is a complete lie because they are doing the opposite. That's because this is not about oversight, it's not about reform. It's about completely gutting foreign assistance itself. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Okay, now this is part of a broader effort by Democrats to get back at Elon for exposing the NGO industrial complex. And beyond blaming him for the recent Ebola outbreak, they're also claiming DOGE dismantling of USAID has already caused hundreds of thousands of deaths. As you'd expect, they're relying on studies using projections built from past data rather than actual death counts. What's more absurd is that one of the studies making headlines was funded by, quote, the Spanish Ministry of Science and Innovation, the UK Medical Research Council, and the EU Horizon Europe. All of them are publicly funded institutions, which raises the question. If they're convinced more foreign aid is the answer, why not spend more of their own taxpayers' money instead of encouraging us to waste ours? Plus, everyone's favorite international organization, the UN, is still there, so why not increase their contributions to its already massive budget? Brian Mast delivered the answer to these questions, and the answer is much simpler than you think.
The programs that USAID and the State Department has spent money on are indefensible. They hurt America standing around the globe. And I think the fact is clear that America would have been better off if your money had been simply thrown into a fireplace. Instead, the Biden administration spent it imposing their far left-wing ideology onto other nations. Under them, USAID spent $2 million for sex change surgeries in Guatemala, $22 million to increase tourism in Tunisia and Egypt. That's not life-saving. $520 million to pay consultants to teach people in Africa about climate change. That's not medicine. $4.5 million to teach people in Kazakhstan how to fight back against internet trolls. That's not life-saving. $20,000 to help LGBT individuals vote in Honduran elections. That's not medicine. So out of touch that they actually believe these programs are bringing other countries closer to us, or that our adversaries are going to gain some kind of foothold if we don't continue doing these programs.
So the reason for most of the spending was driven by ideology, but that wasn't even the biggest issue with USAID. The real problem was how the money moved through the system. By the time it reached the intended recipients, it had passed through multiple layers of contractors, consultants, and NGOs, both in the US and overseas. Every layer came with its own staff, overhead, and administrative costs, meaning a sizable chunk of the funding never made it to the people it was supposedly meant to help. Then there's the model itself. As Brian pointed out, decisions about what entire societies needed were being made by an out-of-touch bureaucrat sitting in D.C. who had little understanding of the countries they were funding. And he wasn't just making blanket statements because he had the clips to back it all up.
That's not what competing looks like for the United States of America. On the contrary, last month, when I participated in a Q&A with my colleague here to the left in the United States Institute of Peace, which will have to explain their funding, The Ugandan ambassador stood up and said these programs were not doing anything to improve relations between our nations. And they were thanking us for not continuing these programs. We are going to show to the American people exactly what they were doing. The videos, the documents, the everything. They are going to see it. Like $25,000 for a drag show seminar for Venezuelan migrants in Ecuador, and we are going to show you that video. That's the USAID program spending your money.
Now, the way foreign aid usually works is pretty simple. Recipient countries tend to welcome it because their budgets are nowhere near the size of ours, so any additional funding can make a real difference. Not with USAID, though, because Uganda's ambassador wasn't alone in calling it out. Slovakia's prime minister even praised Elon and DOGE, saying, quote, "It is indisputable that financial means originating in USAID were used in Slovakia also for political aims, with the aim of deforming the political system and giving advantage to selected political parties." El Salvador's Burkeke shared a similar sentiment on X, writing, quote, "Most governments don't want USAID funds flowing into their countries because they understand where much of that money actually ends up." Adding that much of it is funneled into oppression groups, NGOs with political agendas, and destabilizing movements. Now, with all that in mind, Brian wrapped things up by laying out what he believes is a more common-sense approach to foreign aid.
We will be writing these programs out of law as we conduct our first full State Department review since 2002. I would say that when done right, foreign aid can be one of the best tools. It can help strengthen our relationships with our allies that need a hand up, and it can help countries realize that America is the best partner. But it's only true if we understand a couple of things. What does America actually need from each country or region? What does that country or region actually want from the United States of America? Because it's not these things. And it's only fair to Americans if we can prove that a dollar is better spent going abroad than staying in the pocket of an American who is right now hustling and grinding it out at work.
Yeah, no one could have said it better. We're now just months away from the national debt crossing the $40 trillion mark, the equivalent of 40 Elon Musks. Yet the debate in Washington never seems to change. Democrats keep attacking spending cuts and calling for higher taxes, while Republicans haven't exactly covered themselves in glory either, even if they're at least showing some willingness to tackle parts of the problem. Now, if there's one thing that this should make clear, it's that the way Washington handles taxpayer money isn't sustainable. And a major change is needed in how we handle government spending. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, keep thinking.